but never any intentions to work with horses. We charged £1 a ride, and at the end of every ride, we gave everybody a free lesson voucher. And guess what? That's where it all started.
So you went from not knowing anything to doing 800 classes a week. Obviously, there's a big gap in between there.
Aaron, I know it's Will. Just go and sort him out. Right, okay.
And I didn't know what vegan was. It was that new. I didn't know what vegan was.
I'll tell you the one, my poor husband. Bless him.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Just Horse Riders podcast. This week, I've got someone on very special, I think. She's taken a horse riding school, which was doing pretty much 0 lessons a week, to doing over 800 lessons a week. She's inspired and helped adults and children through horses. And I think without her, the equestrian world would be a lot different. So this week I've got on my mother, who's going to tell us a small slice of her input and influence on the horse riding world. Enjoy. So Sharon,
hello,
Mum.
Hello, son.
Thank you for coming on my little podcast to try and boost the views on for all the riding school.
Let's hope it works.
I hope so. Yeah, I thought it'd be very interesting to get you on here because you, more than most, probably have quite a wide range of experiences and stories and vision in the horse world. And having not come from the horse world like me, you were sort of dragged into it. What sort of tell us a bit like how you actually got into it and what happened and how you felt when you entered it.
Well, it was a big surprise to me. I only really ended up living on a farm because I met a man who owned a riding school, albeit it was quite dilapidated at the time. But I had only intended just to move into this really dirty, shabby, run-down farmhouse, which I wasn't used to, all for the love of a man, you see. And that's how it all started, but never any intentions to work with horses. No. At the beginning, no. So the story goes that I met my husband Kevin in 2006, I think it was, moved in with him because he was quite disgusted when I suggested he moved in with me in a normal suburbia, very nice house in a very nice area. But I ended up moving in with him in this very big Victorian, old, dilapidated house on a farm with horses. So what the idea was that I was just moving in with him, and obviously I had no intentions or never even thought about getting involved with the business. However, 2 years into living with him, it was very clear to me that the riding school was failing. There wasn't enough money coming in even to pay the very few staff that they had and support the very few amount of horses that they had. It was just failing. So I asked him, I said to Kevin, because I'm a nice person, would you like me to have a look at it? And his reply was, you don't know anything about horses. And I said, no, that's right, I don't, but I know a lot about business. So he says, well, if you want to, you can have a try at it. Now, at that time, we weren't really in a very good financial position. So we had no money to invest into the riding school. So I trying to think, how do I make this work? So I went and had a look and spent a bit of time at the weekend because I had a full-time job at the time. And I think I was doing a law degree as well. I was trying to reinvent myself. I was in a bit of a crossroads with my job at the time, well, with my career really. And I thought, gosh, this business is a business of passion. There's scope here. So the first thing I did was I noticed they had some little Shetland ponies. I didn't know they were very naughty little Shetland ponies. But I said to Kevin, what about if I took the ponies to a few of the local schools for their school fairs and see if we can offer some rides for kids and give them some free lesson vouchers, see if we can drum up some business. And he went, you can, but it won't work. Okay. So luckily it was around April, May time. So I phoned up all the local primary schools, and luckily they were all having fetes that year in June. And I said, would you like us to come and bring some ponies, and we'll give you 10% of the earnings? And they all went, oh, yes, please. So we went, and we took these two very naughty little ponies. We charged £1 a ride. And at the end of every ride, we gave everybody a free lesson voucher. And guess what? That's where it all started.
Yeah. So you started getting a lot more business from that.
Obviously, it was a lot of hard work.
Just so everybody know, I was one of the people running up and down with these little Shetland ponies on the fetes.
Not at that point.
No, not at that point, but eventually you wrote me into doing it, yeah.
And I remember you were Father Christmas on a horse once, weren't you?
I was. It was a very overweight Father Christmas, even more so than usual.
So what was quite interesting, so we did that. I mean, it's a very, very long story how we ended up where we were, or where we are now, but it was hard work. It was 7-day weeks. It was 14-hour days. There was a lot of learning, because obviously I didn't know anything about horses. And actually I was married to the place for a long time, and at its height, which was probably just before COVID, we were doing 800 lessons a week. We had 70 horses. We had about 40 staff members. So this is all from when I first got involved. We had literally 4 part-time staff members, and I think there was maybe 8 or 10 quite old ponies, that really, although they were good, but they really were quite old. And yeah. And, there was a lot of work to be done, a lot of work, including every aspect: marketing, accounting, cafe, clients, safety, due diligence, tack, vet, ailments, and the list with horses can go on forever. And what I didn't realise is, even though I've been in business all my life, is this business was different to anything that I've ever done, because it can change on every minute by minute. If a horse goes lame, if a client falls off, there's so many things that can go wrong on a day-to-day business.
Just as a bit of a context, like what if you tell us what you did previous, the other businesses that you...
Well, my history is retail. I've started on the markets in Manchester selling... Well, my dad was a handbag manufacturer, so we used to stand all the markets when I was a kid and make handbags. We used to manufacture them at a very young
Not
age.
child labour, by the way.
It was. I have to say it was.
On here. Well, it's family, so it's okay.
So, 50 years ago, so it was allowed then. Yeah. And then I got into retail, and then I got into property. So business all the way through.
Nothing to do with horses.
Nothing ever to do with horses.
And you said about you had to change there. What was like your first earliest memory of it going, oh, this is different?
Oh, I'll tell you when. I can remember it to this day. So obviously I'm doing all my marketing. In the old days, you never had social media. I mean, social media is like the best marketing tool ever. So, I started marketing on Facebook, and no, actually mainly Facebook, actually. And I managed to get, I think there was 12. I was targeting single men and women, and I managed to get 12 of them for Sunday afternoon, but 4 of the horses went lame, and I'm like, what are we going to do? Anyway, then what I did is I staggered them. I put them in little groups and pretended that I was doing, remember when, I don't know if you remember, there used to be, you could go on these dating evenings where you move round. I forget what it was called now.
The speed dating.
Speed dating. So I thought we'd do horse
speed riding.
So that everybody could meet.
Heard it here first. Speed riding.
So there was a lot of improvising all the time, but I have to say, in all the years, and I was frontline from 2008 right through to just after COVID. So a long time I did that frontline job where I was delegating and improvising and making sure that everything ran smoothly. And in all those years, we never cancelled one lesson.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing. So you went from not knowing anything to doing 800 classes
Lessons a week.
a week.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a big gap in between there.
Was, yeah. And poor Kevin. So I think one of my biggest sentences would be to Kevin was, Kevin, we just need this, and I promise this will be the last time.
It wasn't.
And it never was the last time. So it went from going from one arena, which was the indoor arena we had when we first started, to a second arena, to a third arena, to a fourth arena, to a fifth. We just kept growing. And
just for context as well, a lot of people, they turn up at riding schools and they see everything. It's all built. Yeah. It's all there. And I remember when we moved to the farm, and you moved earlier than I did, it was still in a bit of a bit of a state. And how much back then? What, it was about 10 years ago now?
No, 2008. So we're in 24. So it's 16 years ago.
16 years. How much was an outdoor arena then? Like in the second.
Oh, £40,000.
40,000.
Yeah, 40, and then at least another 10 every 3 to 4 years. You have to redo.
And how much? Do you remember how much you were charging for a lesson?
Yeah, about £7.50.
£7.50. So that's a lot of lessons you got to do. But this is a lot of people don't understand when they go to these sort of places, that the amount of investment and reinvestment that these places need to keep going. And when, the £7.50 isn't a lot of money these days, but when you see £30, £40 a lesson, you can understand why. Because I imagine the costs have spiralled quite massively.
Well, what occurred to me really, really early on was the people who were involved with the horses, the staff that they had, and even the clients that were older clients that came to these really not very nice conditions. They all had one thing in common, and do you know what that was? It was passion. They've all got this passion. They just wanted to be around the horses. They just wanted to look after them. I understand passion because, as you know, I'm a dancer, and I have a passion for that. But they had this passion for dancing. You're indoors, you're wearing beautiful clothes. Okay, you're working out and everything, but it's a really nice environment. You've got toilets.
Just for clarification, it's not pole dancing; it's Latin ballroom. Just because some of the viewers get a bit,
The passion that people have for dancing or for anything is exactly the same as people have for horses, and that was very evident to me right at the very beginning. So as a businesswoman, I then have to say, well, hold on, how do these people get careers within horses? So I started delving into that. And what, again, was really obvious to me was, why are these people doing it? There's very, very low pay, because all horsey people, well, I won't say all horsey people, but a lot of horsey people spend all their money on the horses, so they don't have any money. Career path, what actually can they do? They spend all this time getting qualifications through the British Horse Society, which is a fantastic body, I have to say. But there's no funding, or there wasn't in those days. British Horse Society now is very good. They do help out an awful lot.
Very closely with them, haven't you?
Onto that soon, because the British Horse Society, my hats off to them. They are a really excellent, supportive body that set our standards. But I'm trying to think, well, what do they do? So they have got no money coming in. They spend any money that they've got on their horses. They spend years and years training to become instructors and to become qualified in the care of horses. I sort of compared it to a doctor. A doctor has to go to university. They then have to go and work in an AE, and it all takes about 7 to 9 years. The only difference is, at the end of it, they're all on £120,000 a year. The horsey people, they do the same. They work in horrendous conditions, in the freezing cold, in the pouring rain, in the snow and the ice. They're working in the mud and the dirt with these big animals that are dangerous. And they're all, when they've even finished all their training, they're all still on barely more than minimum wage. I didn't get it. And I asked Kevin, what is it that they do? And he sort of shrugged his shoulders. He's been in the horse world all his life, pretty much. So again, it just highlights the reason why these people, and my hats are always off to them, are in the industry, is because of passion. But I thought to myself, well, hold on. if I want to make this the biggest and the best riding school in the country, possibly the world, I need to invest in these people. I need to make sure that they all have a career path, which is very important to anybody, because for you to have a successful business, you have to have a very good team around you. And the only way you can have a very good team around you is if they are happy in their home life. So they need to be, they need to earn a decent income so that they can have a nice life and that they're not struggling and worrying about that. They also need to have a good work-home balance, because if they're working all hours, and they were, I mean, obviously people who work in a riding school in particular, they mainly work evenings and weekends because that's when the business is. So that was a bit of a negative, you know, and again would have an impact on their life. So, you know, and also how are they ever going to develop a really good CV for later life if they, for any reason, they didn't stay with us, or, you know, we changed, you know, they needed security. So that's what I tried to develop. And the only path that I could see with that they wouldn't have to work all these unsociable hours in these quite poor conditions, even though we made it as good as we could. You know, like we put toilets in, and believe me, they didn't even have any toilets when I first joined.
Luxury.
Yeah. You know, we made a cafe. We made it as comfortable as it possibly could be for the people who are in that industry. But even then, the guys who joined us when they were in their early 20s, you know, if I was going to retain them when they're 30, they don't want to be stood in a freezing cold arena, teaching in the evenings and weekends, having no social life, getting wet and cold. And, you know, I wanted to make something more for them. And the only way that I could see that happening is by creating a career path. And it just happened to be in education. Yeah, and again, we've got massive thanks to the British Horse Society for us going in that direction.
Because you worked very closely with them at one point. Well, still are, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, we weren't approved by the British Horse Society when I first joined, and I knew it was quite a big task for us to meet their criteria. Again, it cost a lot of money.
What do you remember what the criteria was?
It's basic. It's just making sure that your horses are very well looked after and in good condition. Your tack alone is very expensive. Your tack was correctly fitted and also comfortable for the horse and safe. The environment was safe, not just for horses and staff, but for clients, of course. You know, we had to demonstrate that we were a safe environment. We had to make sure all our due diligence was in place. So things like risk assessments, policies. There was also, we had to have certain facilities at certain sizes. So there was, even though it might sound as though, well, these are all things that you should have in place.
But when you're starting from the beginning,
and you don't have them in place, there's nothing that is hundreds of pounds in the horse world. Everything is thousands of pounds, and sometimes, most of the time, tens of thousands of pounds. So there's nothing that's cheap. And then things break all the time, and it's just endless. So my goal was to become British Horse Society approved, and in 2010, I think it was, we applied for our we put our application in to become approved. We had a very nice inspector who came down, who was awfully helpful. You know, we weren't quite there, but she approved us on the condition that over the next 12 months we got the rest in place, because she could see where we were going, and we did. And then we started growing, and because I'm a businesswoman and my marketing techniques really sort of spread around the country, you know, we were getting phone calls left, right and centre from other riding schools saying, oh, you know, would you mind if we came and had a look at you, and could you help us with this? And then we got involved with the Pony Club as well, and they were very intrigued by how we were able to draw in so many clients.
Speaking of drawing, I know we had a couple of celebrities. You had a couple of celebrities. Can you name drop any?
Well, I'm going to tell them the story of one of them because it involves you. So. Okay. I have to do this. Well, I'm going to do two, actually. The first one was really interesting because you just left university, if you remember, and you weren't really good for very much, were you?
Well, quite useless.
your Mickey Mouse degree of business. Yeah. So I took pity on you and I let you be my gopher, didn't I? Just not for very long.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, a gopher is basically somebody who's told what to do, and you go and do it regardless of what the task is.
A nice word for it. Well, a nice name would be you were my little right hand man, weren't you? For a little time.
Yeah.
So in those days, back in 2010, I think it was, how we used to book lessons in is somebody would phone and say, "Hi, have you got a lesson? I want to come for a lesson or hack or whatever." And this guy called Will phoned on a Sunday afternoon. I'll never forget it. And he said, "Oh, hi, I'd like to book an hour's hack for tomorrow." Oh, right, okay, Will, have you ridden before? Yep. Where are you up to? So we did all the due diligence, and it turns out he was I don't know why I'm doing that with my hand. He was a...
That's how they used to have the phone. It was yeah.
And he was a competent rider. And so him and his friend wanted to come for a hack. Okay, so we booked it in, I think it was for about 1:00 in the daytime. And we just used to take the first name, height and weight so we could make sure they're on the right size horse, telephone number. Didn't even take payment in advance in those days, did we? No. So the next day I was sat in my office. Now, my office had a big glass front which faced onto the farm. And your job at the time was to meet and greet the clients, wasn't it? And to fit the hats and then take them to where the horses are. I've got to take the payment, of course, first. Yeah, very important. Always take the payment.
I did forget sometimes, but that's okay. Very honest people in the horse world.
So that was your job, wasn't it? To meet and greet, hats on, take the money, take them to the horses, get them going on the ride. So on this one occasion, I'm in the office doing my work because I did a lot of that, and I was in my
typing, by the way, not playing the piano.
And I was in my famous dressing gown, if you remember, because I used to sit in my dressing gown when I didn't have to be actually on the farm. And Aaron comes to the window, he's banging on the window, and I'm on the phone, and I'm going, "What?" And I said, "Excuse me, could you just hold the line one moment? What do you want?" And he says, "Will's here." I said, "I know, Aaron, he's here for a hack. Go and sort him out." "But Mum, it's Will." "Aaron, I know it's Will. Just go and sort him out." "Right, okay." And I'm just carried on talking, and I put the phone out. He went, "Can I just ask you, do you know who it is?" I said, "Yes, Will." He went, "Yes, but it's Will Young."
I thought you knew who it was. I was like, oh, she must know.
No, I didn't. And I ran up. I said, "Oh my God!" So I ran upstairs, got changed, put my makeup on, came up. "Hi, Will. Nice to meet you." And he was lovely, wasn't he?
He was lovely. He introduced himself, which was, you said his name was Will. It's like, I know who you are. Yeah, because that was when he just come off. Was it X Factor?
Yeah, and he was playing at the Apollo, and he gave us tickets, didn't he?
Yeah, he was lovely.
Can I tell you about the other one? Can I tell everyone about the other one?
If you want.
So, this one was about
I might get in trouble for this one.
Yeah. This was 2 years later. And we had a phone call. Now, this time I knew who it was because the Black Mariahs came in, and we always knew when somebody famous was arriving because they'd come and stake out the place first. And they did, and it turned out to be Leona Lewis. Now, at the time, you'd just opened your first little shop.
This place, yeah.
The
little cabin.
A little cabin in Carrington Riding Centre, that was right. So Leona Lewis we had to shut the whole riding school down for Leona Lewis. She also wanted a hack, didn't she? But when she arrived, and she was very nice, and she had all the bodyguards with her and everything, and we went to put a hat on her, and she went, "Oh, no, I can't wear. Other people have worn those." And we were like, "Yeah, no, I can't." And what about boots? "Well, we've got these boots, and they're all covered in." "Oh, no. I said, "Well, we do sell them. We've got a shop here." And the bodyguard, "Right, okay, well, can we go to the shop?" So we took Leona Lewis over to the shop, opened the door, and Aaron's face dropped.
I didn't know she was here. I didn't know so.
And I said, "Oh, Aaron, this lady would like to be kitted out."
Yeah,
and I left her with you.
Yeah,
and you were so.
Oh well, I didn't know what I was. Well, this is it. It was back in the. I think she was vegan.
She was
vegan, and I didn't know what vegan was. It was that new. I didn't know what vegan was. And she said to me, she wanted a hat, which a hat sorted, no problem. Some boots, synthetic boots. I knew what the synthetic boots were, and half chaps.
Yeah.
Now I didn't know that the ones we had were actually suede.
Oh no.
So I put them on her, but luckily they didn't fit. But like afterwards, she said, "Is these synthetic or suede?" I said, I think they're synthetic, but they weren't. After I found out, I felt so guilty. But I didn't know what vegans were. No. She bought a hat and she bought some boots, and and she was lovely. She was really, really nice.
She was actually, and they gave us tickets as well.
Yeah, we've been everywhere. We got free tickets everywhere.
Adele didn't give us tickets.
Did she not? Did she not give you any tickets? Adele,
And I even offered her a cup of tea.
And she didn't give you any tickets.
No, because she had a sore throat.
Adele, if you're watching this, please send us some tickets in the post to my mum. She's very upset, clearly.
So we've had quite a few celebrities. Yeah. I did tell Roy Keane off once, but I didn't know who he was. So
for anybody who doesn't know, the riding school is literally next to Manchester United's training ground.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have to be really careful of is dogs, because people bring dogs onto the farm thinking it's okay. We love dogs, but if somebody brings on a dog into the riding school and for any reason it's off the lead and then it goes for horses, and kids are on the horses or adults are on the horses, it can cause a really bad accident. So we don't allow dogs onto the premises. And anyway, so this man drove in a big estate car and he opened up the boot of his car and out jumps this massive big German Shepherd. So I saw it. I'm in the cafe and the car park was just across the road from me and I could just see it. So I'm running out. Excuse me, can you put that dog back in your car? And this guy went, yeah, of course I will. And he put the dog back in the car and I stomping back to the cafe and this bloke said to me, do you know who you've just told off? I went, no, who? He went, Roy Keane. And I went, who's that? I didn't know who he was. I don't like football.
But the most important thing, did he give you any tickets?
No, he didn't actually, but he did book a letter.
Roy, if you're watching this, you need to send some tickets. So this is it. So you literally got it from a point of probably closing. If I remember, like the riding school closing down because it was so dilapidated. There was no.
From when I first got in, I thought you meant now we wouldn't. No. Yes.
To a stage where it was doing 800 classes a week and celebrities were coming.
Yes.
Which again is, and how long did that take? How many years?
For it to be making money, probably about 5 years, and then it just grew from strength to strength. But what I was actually telling you was I was leading on to the careers, wasn't I, for the staff? Sorry, there's so much to tell you. We've had such a journey.
We'll have to have you back on again. There won't be enough time to do it.
If anybody wants to send questions or anything like that, or talk about a particular topic, I've got so much information, and now I'm 60. Everybody,
just don't look it.
I'm trying to semi-retire, so it's a joy for me to talk about it because I know how much joy it has brought to so many people and still does. But just going back to the career path, so I did realise we had to do something. So started the collaboration with the British Horse Society, and they saw we were doing a good job and knew what we were doing, and also I think I was on their advisory committee at one stage, and they asked me to pre-pilot a scheme that was very close to their director's heart, and she was a Canadian lady. I forget her name, but she was a really lovely lady, and she wanted to create this. Let's just go back a little bit. We all know that horses do something for young people with mental health issues. We don't know what it is. You'll have a screaming young person who's maybe autistic, who's having a really vocal episode, and you put them in front of a horse and they just calm down. You see them diffuse and you just don't know what it is. But there's something about horses, and it's, a lot of people are doing this equine therapy now. But it is so true. We see it, and we don't know why, but we love it. So this lady, her name was Lynn, I think. Her name was Lynn. And she wanted to start a course for young people with special needs to do with horses. So they wanted us to pre-pilot this scheme called Changing Lives Through Horses. And they funded it. And what they wanted was for us to get some students on this course that we could more or less develop ourselves. They just provided the resources, which were fantastic. And and then run with it and see how it ran. Now, what they didn't know was how quickly I would do this. So we decided that on the Friday, and on the Monday, I had 4 students starting. And these were all students that weren't attending school because they had anxiety, or they were autistic, or they had Asperger's, or they had something that was preventing them from going to school. Because as we now know, mainstream school does not suit all young people. In fact, there's so many it doesn't suit, and yet they flourish in our environment. So we started this and we ran it for a year with these young students, and oh my goodness, they did so well. It changed their lives, and that was the whole point of this course. It was called Changing Lives Through Horses. Well, this changed their lives. They spent 4 hours a day at our place instead of going to school. And you could just see the changes, the confidence, they re-engaged with life. It was just wonderful to see. And then the British Horse Society was so impressed with it. They then rolled it out to 10 riding schools within the country. And then we just carried on. And within, I want to say within 2 years, maybe 3 years, 2 to 3 years, we had 80 students on this course.
I didn't even know there was that many.
Really?
No, I didn't know they had that many. Within 2 years?
2 to 3 years, we built up to around 80 students. And it's an alternative, we call it now an alternative provision because that's what it is. We still call it Changing Lives. But what then happened was we didn't just stop at horses, we took it to dogs. And because we have a small animal rescue on the place, we took it into animals as well. So they do it through horses, dogs, small animals, and it was just wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And, that started sort of giving the instructors, we were able to put them on training courses, because there's when you're dealing with autistic young people or any young person with mental health, there's so many variations and we have to meet their needs. That's the important thing, because mainstream school in a lot of cases just doesn't. And we found we could, because we could keep them in small groups. We could even do one-to-ones. We could meet their needs and really adapt the day to what their moods were, or how if they were stressed on a particular day, it would we can adapt the day for them.
Did you ever have any feedback from like their parents, from the difference in them as human beings, from being in the mainstream school as to being in the riding school?
I've cried at some of the emails we got. I can remember there's 2 or 3 that stick in my mind. One mother wrote to me and said, "You've saved my child. You've saved him. You've not made him. You've saved him. You've saved his life." One parent just said, "You've given my child a reason to get up in the morning." Don't forget, these parents have got a really hard job. They not just the emotional job, but the physical job of dealing with very unhappy, in a lot of cases, young people who just can't go to school for whatever reason. And there's lots of them. And they just, in a lot of cases, they don't really know what they want to do, but they love being around animals and horses. So it changes their lives. We even to this day now, we get emails regularly thanking us for giving their child hope, for changing their lives, for making them happy. One parent just said, "Thank you. My child smiles now. She smiles." And what's lovely as well, it isn't just girls. We have a very good percentage of boys as well. So we have a very mixed cohort at the alternative provision. So the win-win situation was the young people were absolutely benefiting massively from it. Our staff were then forming a career. We could afford to pay them more. They were getting better hours because school hours. That's
better than the antisocial ones that we were working, like evenings, weekends.
And we were able to provide better facilities. So it sort of had a knock-on effect in a positive way for the riding school, for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that is amazing. Yeah. So that I know the rest of the story, but it didn't stop there, did it?
No, it didn't. So what happened once was all the local authorities were pressing us to take some of these young people on full time. Now, running through an alternative provision, you can't. You can only do so many hours a week. And the benefit of being an alternative provision is the book doesn't end with us; it ends with the school that these young people are coming from.
The kids that were coming for the alternative provision, they were coming for, is it a day a week or 2 days a week?
Some of them would do, up to 4 days a week, but they still were on the role of a mainstream school. So the mainstream school would, in effect, hire us to take the young person for whatever reason, even if it was just enrichment or reward, that's why they sent us. But if there was any problems, that would bounce back to the school. So
which again is a massive task in itself.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, we aren't, we've developed into this. None of us are educational people. We haven't come from mainstream schools. We haven't been trained. However, we do run a college. I won't go into that today, but we do have a college at our centre, which we've run for quite a few years, but in association with a mainstream college, Trafford College. They're fantastic. And they gave us another insight into education. But that is a bit of a separate thing. Yeah. Anyway, what then happened was, so the local authorities, can you not take these students full time? Can you? And the only way we could do that is if we became an independent school. And to become an independent school, you have to be Ofsted approved. All that word sends shivers down my spine. I'm sure any educational people out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Ofsted is it's scary. It's scary and it's hard. And obviously they are there to ensure the safety of the and development of young people. But it's a whole different world. So we've always shied away from it because, we're not educational people. However, we were involved with another alternative provision based on the other side of Manchester who said to us, you have everything in place here to become Ofsted approved. We just need to do A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah. But we can do all that for you. You can just pay us.
So you're like 90% of the way there? Or?
They said. 80%. I'd say probably 70% of the way there, and they would put in the other 30%.
Oh, yeah, I feel there's a but coming here.
Well, to be fair, they did, sort of. It took 2.5 years to get that in place. Wow. So this all happened just before COVID, actually. Probably happened in about 2019. Really? Yeah, so we start working towards getting all the things in place. And then we had COVID. But by middle of 2022, we sort of had everything we thought in place. So we did it. We went for it. We phoned, we got in touch with Ofsted. We'd like to apply to become an independent school. So, there was all the rigmarole of the application and everything. And let me tell you that this was not easy. There was still massive financial burden with this. Lots of stuff that we didn't really understand. I won't say we employed more educational people, but there was some people who were already coming to us with students from school, like teacher assistants and things, who wanted to join us. So we took a couple of those on who sort of knew a little bit more what goes on in schools, but they also knew what goes on our farm. So it was a really good marriage there. And we got a couple of really good people from that. And so we put our approval in, and they came in September 2022 to do what they call a pre-inspection. Oh, no, it was great.
Oh, really?
He loved us.
You put me in suspense. I thought you were going to say, no, that was it.
This is where we sort of were probably a little bit premature in the comfort of, we've got everything in place.
A bit too cocky.
Not cocky. It was just we can do this. Yeah. So we became approved to take students, and we could take up to 40, but I said no, we start off with just a handful, and which we did. So in 2022 we started with before Christmas we had about 5 or 6, and it was all going really well. And we knew we had to have an English, maths and science teacher, but we sort of hired them. We did it. We got tutors in. And then we're starting to get all these referrals, and they were coming in thick and fast, and we're thinking, oh my goodness, this is going a bit too.
The referrals of the students.
We were getting referrals, and we then realised, even though we were sort of hiring what they call a Senko, which is the person who analyses all the referrals and says, can we meet their needs? We suddenly realised we're going to need a full-time one of these. Where do we start? Luckily for us, and I only just realised this, but actually lots of very substantial teachers and head teachers in the mainstream educational bodies wanted to join us. So actually, I did no recruitment at all.
Is that because they'd heard about it, or they'd been, or
they were sending students to us, and
really? And they saw the change, and they
not just they saw the scope, and some. I'm not saying all. Listen, mainstream school is very hard job, and the teachers that are out there are absolutely brilliant what they do, but I think the people who's joined us just wanted a new challenge, and they saw saw the potential. So we were very, very lucky that we were able. We were joined by some extremely experienced educational people who knew exactly what we needed to do. And they did it. When I say they did it, we did have an Ofsted inspection. It was our first one. We had one good, but we did needs improvement, which we've been putting in place. That was only in November last year. We've only been running just over a year. We've just had our second short inspection to make sure that we'd done all the things that we hadn't done, and they've just gone away, and we've passed every single point. And now all we want is our next inspection, where we are all confident we're going to get a good in it all. And we now have, by September, we will have the 40 students. We have 2 English, 2 maths, 2 science teachers. We have teachers in PHSE. We have all the main skills, but then on the timetable, of course, is all the horses, the animals, the dogs. They do cookery. They do, some of them, because they do boxing because they need to express their anger, all in a farm environment. And we've got, one of the things Ofsted was really impressed with was that we have students who haven't been to school for 3 years, and yet they come every day. And do you know what the worst day of the year for these students is? Aaron, you won't believe it. The day they break up for school holidays, they're all crying. They don't want to not be here.
Really?
When I say here, at the farm, yeah. So now it's an onwards and upwards thing. It's not been easy, and a lot of it has been luck. A lot of it's been a lot of luck.
You need luck sometimes.
I know. But, just when I walk through the farm, which I don't walk through that often because I hide a bit, but the young people that watch, hiya Sharon, hiya Sharon. And do you know what I did yesterday? I did a dance lesson. I teach Zumba, and we did a Zumba for them, and they loved it. It's brilliant, and the boys get involved, and we're so diverse now. But obviously, the big pull for all of these young people is the farm environment and the animals. But they all get their education. We've got one sitting GCSEs. We've got a lot of quite academic young people, as well as not so academic. But we don't put the pressure on them. They don't need pressure.
Amazing. Yeah. One thing as well. I mean, obviously the riding school side of it. I was talking. You mentioned COVID before. Now, at the time, how many horses do you remember?
We had 70.
70 horses through COVID. I mean, a lot of riding schools shut down because of COVID. Like, how did you deal with that? Like, how?
Thank God for furlough, obviously. Thank God for the grants. I mean, the grants didn't last very long, to be honest. We had a awful lot of support from the community. We got volunteer. The big thing for us is obviously to shut our doors and not have any income coming in. It is more problematic than most businesses, because although all the staff will be paid through furlough, we still got to look after the horses and the animals. And, our expenses before, this was then, our expenses before wages was £7,500 a week.
Jeez.
A week. So when we couldn't open, that's how much it was costing us. So thank God for the Sybil loans, the BBL loans. We took everything. We went into quite a lot of debt over that time, but thank God we had a lot of bank support, because they knew that we had a good business. and we're still paying them off now. We haven't paid them off yet. And and the British Horse Society, oh bless them, they did what they could, and they do put the money where their mouth is. And we did a lot of things like sponsorship. We took photos and made poems, and we sent Pony Club bags. So we did these, I think we did £30 for a pack, and we had a lot of support through that. We sent them out through the post. So although we didn't have any income coming in, we managed to get through via grants, loans, and the community who are absolutely amazing.
This is what I wanted to probably finish on. I know you.
Oh, sorry, but I never shut up, do I? No.
More. I know what time you like to go to bed, so you know what you like. Well, just on the community side of it. Obviously, I've talked about on the podcast before how horse people they are. There's no community or world like it. So you just said then during COVID you had all the community helping. Like, what have you got any stories or anything that sticks in your head of just a wow moment of a like if you got, I'm sure you've got loads, but if you got
I'll tell you the one, my poor husband, bless him. So just this one day, so you know how we weren't allowed to open, I think we shut March the 23rd, something like that. And then the first day we could open was something like May the 19th, if I remember. And what they allowed was, it was something, we could do things outside. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
it changed so much. It's changed so much all the time.
I can't remember what it was, but it was a beautiful day. And what I'd advertised is, come and ride a pony for £5. So
one of your marketing skits, yeah.
I put it on Facebook. I share things, Anyway, on that day, and on that day, I'm in the cafe, and we've got all these ponies in arenas. I think we had 3 or 4 in 2 arenas, and then all of a sudden Kevin comes running in. What have you done? What have you done and why? He went, and I looked outside and the cars were queuing, not just down our path, and our path must be, I don't know how long is the path from?
About 100 metres, easily, at least 150 metres.
Isherwood Road, so that's half a mile.
Yeah, it was all the way back up there. Was it?
Queuing into the place, because I did, obviously, it didn't occur to me, everything's still closed, but we're allowed to open. And we had all these people, and it wasn't just the people coming for the riding, they all then wanted food in the cafe, but because they could all sit outside because we've got all the picnic benches. Oh, it was a nightmare. Anyway, that was one of the funny moments. But we made quite a lot of money on that day. So
well, this is it, but you had a lot of money to pay back.
Well,
so it was.
It produced some income, which was fantastic.
You had to do these sort of things.
I think it was a bank holiday, so it must have been, I think, the end of May. It was. Yeah.
But this is it. The horses have always been a. I mean, even when I was a kid, I remember going horse riding. It was always such a special thing, isn't it? It is such a special thing, and I think a lot of the people in the horsey world probably forget sometimes actually how lucky we actually are for one to even be able to have a horse and afford a horse and being part of the community. Yeah. And I know we could talk about so many things for hours and hours and hours and hours on end, but with the riding school, I just want to say I know where it came from and I know where it is now. I'm really, really proud of you for what you've achieved.
Really proud of you too.
I'm just sitting on a little podcast, that's all.
More than that.
But yeah, super proud of you. If there was more people like you in the world, it'd be a much better place, I think.
Make me cry.
I hope so. I want to make me cry for the camera. No, joking. No, it's true. It's true. You really are special, and I think this is why the BHS, all these sort of governing bodies, want to come and work with you, because they see, one, how much you care, clearly, because of all these comments and replies you've had from parents about how much you've helped the children, and that you put, whilst it is still a business, you still make it work as a rider, horse first. It's not work, it's a lifestyle. Definitely. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for all the amazing stories. And yeah, if anybody does have any other questions for my mum, Sharon, or topics you want to talk about, because I'm sure she'll want to come back on again. But yeah, no, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. I see you in a minute.
I'm trying to be professional.
Oh, sorry. We're very professional here.
Yeah,
You can
we
tell. All right, thank you.